In this session, we'll go a bit deeper into what we just touched upon, which is GenAI and the role of GenAI in telecom, and what are we finding. And to help us discuss that, we have a great panel with very different perspectives from different dimensions of the ecosystem to give us a holistic picture of GenAI and its role as the industry evolves over the next 5-10 years. So without further delay, maybe if you guys can just introduce yourself, your role in how you understand or your organization is understanding the GenAI opportunities, and then we'll just dive straight into Q&A. Chetan.
All right. I'm Chetan Aira. I'm the Director of Radio Access Network Engineering in California for AT&T. And our view on GenAI is more on the operational side because I have to run this network with the best possible quality. So maybe some of the examples I'm going to give you will be right from the field that where we need GenAI and how it's going to change the quality of this network going forward.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Srinivas. I head the global pre-sales for cloud and network services in Nokia. So we build infrastructure agnostic software for the telecom networks. In my role, my responsibility around GenAI is to make sure how we find integrated use cases into our products that we're building, and also find very specific use cases of using GenAI and bringing value to our customers.
Great. Hi, my name is Gabriele Di Piazza. I head up the products at Blue Planet. Blue Planet is a division of Siena, and we provide operational support systems automation software that ranges from orchestration, inventory, assurance, route optimization, slicing. So going on different segments of the network. And in terms of GenAI, I tend to look at these in two ways. How can GenAI help us in the process of building our products? And then how can GenAI can help our customers in basically providing a set of use cases or more advanced capabilities in interacting with the products, in understanding the networks, in programming, and obviously automating some of the networks, or even interacting with their customers as well. So that's maybe core central to what I have to do here in Blue Planet.
Got it.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, my name is Malik. I lead global sales for Aira Technologies, and I work very closely, first of all, with my customers, AT&T being one, some of the global customers, to see that how the technology which we are bringing and building is going to improve their day zero, day one, day two operations, leveraging both on machine learning AI and also Gen AI, and transforming the way they used to work and how it's going to be much more improving the quality of service, quality of experience for the end customer, and also the way operationally they can optimize their working. And of course, work very closely with partners, Blue Planet, AWS, several others, so how we can orchestrate all these things together. So we build the best-in-class use cases and how it can work with the existing system or the new SMO system like from Ericsson. So today I'm very excited to talk. I mean, we have partners on the table, we have the customer on the table, audience, so very excited.
Great.
Yeah.
Anton.
Yeah, so I'm Anton Lysenko, associate partner at McKinsey, based out of this office. I've been serving telco clients for more than a decade, so on a variety, kind of broad range of network topics. And so I've seen kind of the transition of how the mindset has been shifting, especially related to like automation, AI. So happy to share kind of my observations more outside in, like what we are seeing in the industry, and just excited to be here with you.
So maybe I'll start with you, Anton, in terms of just setting the stage of how you guys are looking at GenAI in the telecom landscape. You guys had come out with a report and analysis earlier this year in terms of putting some numbers together. And so maybe you could talk about some quantification as well as what led you to those numbers.
Sure. So broadly, we see kind of the three frontiers for GenAI adoption in the network space, especially like in RAN space. So first one is like more kind of operational improvements, and I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about it this day. But how can GenAI be applied in sales, in an energy optimization, so having more tactical things like log analysis, like how do you like make your network more predictive, right? So that's kind of one first frontier, and like that's more kind of more like where we are today. Like that's where a lot of effort is being focused today. I mean, we see a lot of our clients kind of investing a lot of money and effort in this. The second frontier is kind of more strategic. So how do you augment all network data, and how do you make use of that network data kind of even beyond network? So how do you generate insights for your sales teams, for your care teams? So how can we kind of take advantage of all the data that network generates and translate it in something that is like human interpretable and actionable, right? That's kind of the second frontier. The third one is a bit more forward looking, is like, how do we leverage AI for like full automation of the network, right? So a little bit of what Fan was talking about earlier today, like how can we make network more autonomous, and how can we kind of leverage the power of GenAI kind of so that we support it, and like not the other way around. Like it's not used as a tool, it's more of an engine that is driving the network, and we are just kind of supporting and we sure it works right. So those are kind of the three frontiers we are seeing. I think in terms of where we are today is like lots of effort is being invested in the first one today. I think that's where most of the money is today, where most of the kind of ROIs is being generated today. A lot of our clients are experimenting kind of with the second one. Like, I mean, we have a couple of operators who are building like their homegrown tools that allow them to really generate insights about like how the network is performing. What is the experience of a specific customer in the network, right? And the third automation one, I think like we're not there yet. I think like it's more of a kind of aspirational goal, like where we want to be. But I think like with all the components that are being built today, from like 5 to 7 years from now, I think that's where like this is the time horizon where we think we can start seeing first results.
So if I remember correctly, kind of the overall impact, economic impact of GenAI and telecom was roughly anywhere from $600 to $800 billion. With GenAI new use cases, it was roughly $60 to $100 billion. So we are still very early, but it was, I think, came out in February. So we are in November now, getting close to a year. Are the data points tracking to your assumptions that you had? Probably the research was done even in the prior year. Are the data points tracking to your assumptions, or are there shifts either in the positive direction, negative direction, or they're kind of the same?
I think that it's broadly in line with what we expected. And again, most of the value that we're seeing today is kind of from this first bucket that I mentioned, like from the operational improvements, from like field efficiencies, like network efficiency, energy efficiency. So I think broadly we see that like the best in class operators who do it right, they manage to achieve about like 15 to 20% OPEX savings, like in those areas. Like most of the impact today is from that.
Got it. So Sinan, maybe, I mean, given that you are deep into the bowels of operations, can you break down how you are looking at, like, operations can be many things, but from an operations point of view, where are you applying GenAI, and what are you seeing?
Well, first of all, we already have AI in our networks. We're not new to this game. Mm-hmm. And the reason why we had AI in the first place was that the network was already complicated 10 years ago. We were going from 3G to 4G, and then the whole headnet concept was kind of new back then. So we had systems like SON, for example. We're not new to the idea and the implementation of that.
Yeah.
But now it's getting even more complicated. So from operations point of view, we need simplification, we need a faster response, and we need efficiency more than anything. Mm-hmm. So there are some familiar faces in the crowd that I worked together before, and we're all in different CSPs now, but I think there's a common problem at the moment. We're not hitting 100% of our problems because we don't have the resources, because we're still manual. Mm-hmm. With all the AI tools we have, with all the songs we have, with all the automation we already created in the network, we're still very much manual, mm-hmm. which means we need efficiency for our engineers. So when I say efficiency, people always think about replacing the manual processes with machines and then getting into a whole new world order, right? That's actually not what I mean. What I mean is to enable engineers to do better and faster and more. Because right now, 80% of my team is practically complaining from not having enough time to attend the problems they have. They still need to open a dozen different windows in front of them, pull down the data, put them in a dashboard, look at the trouble tickets, and then figure out what happened yesterday. What happened at this site yesterday? What happened at the airport yesterday? That's a lot of manual work. We can't keep up with this network with this speed. We have got to be more efficient. So GenAI, in my opinion, more than anything, is to be more efficient in our everyday operations. I need to give my engineers a machine that learns what's going on in this network. So whether it's 5G, whether it's low band, mid band, C band, 120 megahertz, 160 megahertz, whatever it is, that machine needs to learn before they do and help them be more efficient. That's my view on GenAI.
So many brought up an interesting point about looking at just purely from the pipeline of problems, like what problems I'm able to address. Is that gap very wide? Is it like with GenAI you get to, instead of 80% problems, you get to 100%? Or is the gap so wide that you need like GenAI working now?
That's a good question. It depends on what kind of quality you're looking for. So if you're okay with having 20% attendance to your problems and your customers are happy with that, you may not need it at all. I don't live in that world. I got to be at 95% daily. And it's not only the maybe daily operations alone. If you wait until the problem exists, it's late enough. So GenAI needs to come up with predictive models. GenAI needs to come up with a better CapEx model for our investments. We need to understand where to go invest first so we don't have the congestion problem, capacity problem in the network. Once you have it, it's too late. So GenAI has not only this very operational help, if you will, but we need some predictive analysis from GenAI as well as investment advice from it.
And so for context, you are managing the Western market.
I'm managing California. Correct.
Got it. Which is a massive market. Srini, from a vendor point of view and the way you think about R&D, getting into products, and operationalizing that in the field, how are you thinking about GenAI in terms of how that seeps into various product portfolios?
Yeah, I would say GenAI kind of helps in three main aspects. One is the human augmentation. The other one is the technology augmentation. The third one is the process augmentation. Human augmentation, a simple example could be a SOC analyst who's actually looking at different threat vectors. Is he or she able to really get a report quickly done, get something quickly done based on a simple command rather than getting into the technology of the technical intricacies of how a malware has actually impacted the network. So that could be a simple example of utilizing Copilot and trying to get a simple report done from a threat that has actually happened and how it has been averted and responded to. So and you could take several such examples. Somebody's ability to build an HLD, a high-level design document or a low-level design document or a test plan quickly. So that's what is human augmentation that you could look at. The second aspect is more operational augmentation. I think Sinan talked about some of the automation that we need to do. How do we drive things like advanced correlation rather than raising one trouble ticket for every alarm that's actually occurring in the network? Are you really able to correlate these, apply rules for advanced correlation and provide specific intelligence to the NOC analysts or for that matter, even the administrators in an opportune moment? I think that's something which we call as the process augmentation. You could even term something like your energy efficiency. That's something which you could look at it as a process augmentation as well. Third is obviously the business augmentation. How could you really use GenAI to drive up your top line? While the other two are more focused towards improving efficiency, which is going to have a direct impact on the bottom line. how can you really utilize GenAI to drive, let's say, a competitive advantage in your business? Are you able to bring in plans at a much faster pace? Are you able to launch new services with lower time to market, taking in intelligence that is actually happening real time? Take the customer behavior, user behavior, device behavior. Are you able to correlate all these and launch plans on the fly and bring down the time to market of the new service? So that's what we call as the big business augmentation. From our perspective, our product should be helping all these areas, and GenAI has a very specific role to play in each of these three specific categories.
That's nice summary. Gabriele, you mentioned you're using it for your own product development. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about that, but also given your background and expertise in cloud, and how do you see the two worlds of cloud and AI coming together?
Yeah. This is, I think it's a key topic because AI is very attractive, right? GenAI is very attractive. I was reflecting on this this morning. In Blue Planet, as part of Sina, we operate even our own corporate objective, right? So, believe it or not, this year we are selecting a corporate objective to reduce our cost by X% using GenAI in our development tools. How do you measure it is a different story. This means that our collective bonus in the company will be tied to this corporate objective, one of 4 or 5. So not a nice to have, but an actual top-down objective that we are embracing, right? Example is our products leverage a lot of different connectivity to thousands of devices out there. We have our engineering team, our professional services team, and our partners, having to develop, adapt, integrate. That's one aspect where we're actually looking at shaving some of the cost optimization. How do we automate? How we learn over time, device classes, device behaviors, and basically automate the ability, not just from our internal engineering perspective, but also how can we then create a time to market for our customers in basically reducing it from some weeks or months to few days in this way, automating that. The other aspect is I like the picture this morning had the round with people at the center and AI around it, moving to AI at the center. If I think of this in the context of a product, today we have products. We had products in our space for many years, and we are somehow putting some AI around it. Or one of the core initiatives I'm trying to drive is, can we actually somehow use this metaphor of you place AI at the center and the product is built on top of that? Because the more we go in conversation with customers, we are following some of the core processes: plan to build, order to service, trouble to resolve. In each one of these, you can see how AI will drive optimization. But if you don't place it at the center, the risk is that you're now creating more cost in adapting or bolting.
So clearly one is the process of product development.
Yes.
Are you also unearthing features that you didn't think about before?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Example, one of our core areas is inventory, where there's typically some set of manual processes in discovering, reconciling, and this is a process that we are starting to have some early prototypes and start to see how we can actually automate all of this process, especially with GenAI, not with AI, right? The other aspect is that can we use the multimodality of the new models to move this in the front end, bringing this in the field teams as well, as opposed to be a back-end system. So you can actually have that exposure that would simplify the what an agent can do from an information perspective. If we look at our automation orchestration product, families and so forth. Clearly, understanding, creating a model, creating a state. Everybody talks about autonomous networks. The question is, how can you evolve responsibly towards generating configurations based on states? And this is where, working with Aira as an example, you cannot do everything everywhere, but you need to be able to have expertise in a specific domain, but then also cross-pollinate and cross-correlate this across the different domains. We think there could be maybe 30-40% of improvement in these type of processes, automating this, while today it's a highly manual, highly unstructured, very fragmented type of model. This will also require, of course, a collective improvement from network equipment providers and everybody else. We are multi-vendor by choice, right? If you look at assurance, how do we turn what is a typical process of looking at your NOC or SOC instead of going and try to find the problem, even with all the intelligence that we've been using for many years with AI or ML, in that problem being proposed to you. So not looking for something hidden or in a clever way. Technical people say, why should you even go look for something where that somebody can be an agent that basically at least understands some of the core aspects. I use the word responsibly because before you put a network configuration in action, you need to have a specific set of guardrails as well. But these are some of the core things that we're looking at.
And so Malik, you are the startup on the panel, which generally behaves differently than larger corporations. So in terms of how you work with large clients or the CSPs, what are you finding the biggest hurdle is initially? And then based on your existing experience in the field, what are you finding in your expectations going forward?
I think the biggest hurdle, being a startup and ex-corporate guy, a startup run very fast, and the CSPs, they run on their own pace. So I think that's one of the challenges which we see every day. But I think where we are landing now, especially the large customers we engage with, that now we are at a stage where they're clearly realizing that these things has to be looked now. It cannot wait for tomorrow. One of the examples which Chetan gave, that the issues which is in the network, they have to be solved now. And US especially, and most of the countries, the demand from the customer, the availability of the network, the quality of service, quality of experience is so high that they really need to leverage on machine learning, AI or GenAI to do root cause analysis much more accurately, much more faster, and much more accurately. And similarly, one thing which I would like to add here as well, I think Raj brought that topic, which is the consumer of the network is also changing, right? I mean, I worked with Chetan for many years, knows him. Our consumer was mainly subscribers, but today we heard on the previous panel, the EV is a subscriber, is a user. Now, EV's behavior or the demand from the network is totally different. And all these, the NOC engineers, the SOC engineers, the RF engineers, the people who design the network, they've been designed for a consumer-based network. And now all of those things are shifting at a very fast pace. And that's where you cannot throw just people to the problem. That's where AI, GenAI has to come in the picture. And that's where I think we as a startup, we are working very closely with pretty much all the CSPs in North America and some global, working closely with our partners that how we can solve this problem in a much more faster way. And specific to GenAI, APIs are now becoming, it's been on the table for long, but now it's becoming reality. You're seeing APIs one after another, whether for the EV sector or for IoT sectors. That's where we are building solutions which really can help the CSPs to deploy API much faster than in the legacy where somebody designed it, somebody then coded it, somebody tested, somebody deployed. It can be done in one-stop shop. And that's where we believe that GenAI can play a big role.
And so, one of the things you mentioned was the cost efficiencies. And so clearly every CFO will look at, so at the end of the day, what's the end result or the financial metric? And Anton mentioned, some of the successful ones are aiming towards anywhere 20-30% savings. Are you finding that in your early assessment that that's where we'll end up, like at least as a starting point, where you can indeed use technology to replace the manual work, and hence that's where the saving is going to come from?
Yeah. So in our case, for the operational efficiency for day 2, the use case which we have picked up with one of the CSP, internally we did the exercise. We came to close to 20 to 30% of OPEX saving which they can pull in. And then we let the operator does their own calculation that if this co-pilot can give into the telco engineers, the NOC, the field guys or the RF guys, they came up with the same more or less finding, 20 to 30%. Of course, it's going to be a journey. It's going to be start with 5-10%. The accuracy will improve, but over the time, we are firm believer and our customers as well that it can easily bring 20 to 30% in the mid to long term. Another topic which we also see is on the energy saving. The energy saving, it's a big cost for operators and it can be reduced. Network breathe, network are not static. So the energy can also breathe, and that's where the work which we have showcased in DTW this year, we have showcased from 25 to 27% of energy saving, which is a lot, right? And of course, it will vary from operator to operator. It will vary from cluster to cluster, the area. But that area also, we can clearly see it's a double-digit saving for any telco.
Anton, so savings are not uniform across the operators, or projects. So for the most successful operators or most successful projects, what are some of the characteristics in how they have implemented or gone about implementing or using GenAI?
So I would say like there are 2 primary challenges you need to overcome, like when you're implementing GenAI. One is like technology related, and the second one is kind of organizational or like people related, right? So technology problems are, I think we're all aware of this. How do you build a model that works? How do you train the model? How do you, keep the model relevant? And how do you have kind of the right data? And how do you keep the data also kind of relevant and like up to date, right? So I think all of these challenges, like if you manage to kind of to orchestrate this and resolve all of these technological challenges, that's kind of one pillar. And the second pillar, which is arguably equally or even more important, is how do you kind of change the organization so that people actually feel comfortable using it, right? Like this field technicians, they're all like extremely experienced. They know like from their experience, like they typically have a kind of a good hunch, like what is the problem. So kind of changing their mindsets and instead of kind of using their experience and like relying more on technology, it's one of the biggest obstacles we sometimes see kind of among our clients. Just making this transition, I think, is just one of the big challenges that operators a lot of them are struggling to overcome. But the ones that manage to overcome that and kind of change the mindset of the entire organization, I think those are the ones that are most successful.
So one of the things that we touched upon was energy management, the need for which shot up after and the war in Europe, and so all the European operators, the cost went 2x, 3x, 5x. So there are different solutions on the table. One is just purely looking at when to shut off, what frequency. Another one is that I think Nokia introduced at MWC, which is looking at even much deeper at what elements of the network you can turn on and off it, and clearly the AI plays a role in both of them. It feels like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, software-based solution is more kind of near term. You can implement it more sooner versus upgrading the hardware, get to a point where you get significantly higher efficiency gain. So from a energy saving point of view, clearly you must have both types of or different layers of solutions in the marketplace. So what are you finding from energy savings point of view and your learnings from that?
Yeah, sure. I think you got to look at 2 specific elements from an energy perspective. The first one is obviously the active elements, the RAM, the core that we run on. All these are active elements which actually move bits and bytes within the network. And our finding is while these actually consume 70% of the energy, out of that 70%, less than 50% of that energy is actually used to move bits and bytes. A lot of energy goes into actually maintaining them, keeping them up and running. So that's where the main challenge is. All the solutions that we have today are for example, a song that we take, pretty much focuses on point-in-time capability of making some specific changes, reorienting, making some specific settings within the radio and driving energy savings. You got to look at holistically, you got to look at what has happened in the past and what is likely to happen in the future. Take all those aspects into account and eventually make those changes and make those setting changes on a dynamic manner. So that's one thing which you should be looking at. Right now, we would say only 30% of the energy is actually used by the passive elements like the diesel gensets and others. There is actually no cohesive solution that is available in the market which can really have an impact on the passive elements. These are the two aspects when it comes to the RAM and the others. Also, in terms of products, as you will see, Intel, as they move in from one version of the Xeon processor to the other, there are very specific capabilities that they are introducing to build in energy efficiency. And from one processor family to the other, there is almost 30% improvement. AMD is doing the same. Several other chip makers are actually looking at that. As somebody who's actually building products, I think there needs to be very specific capability that we need to build in to make sure that the energy that is consumed by these products, especially I'm talking about a core product that we're building, how do we work on our own coding standards? How do we build our own products in such a way that they consume lesser processor power, lesser energy from the processing capabilities? And that's something that we're working on. So one is obviously to look at, we have a specific product that we offer as a SaaS to really help customers manage their energy on the radio access network. In addition to that, we're building capabilities within our own products to make sure that progressively we are able to reduce the energy consumption for these software products over a period of time.
Gabriel, any thoughts on energy management? And then I'll...
Well, very similar.
Yeah.
The difference is that we Nokia you also have the element. We don't have the element, but it just becomes also the aspect of learning across the board, right? So then how do you implement this? Are you looking at a specific cell? Are you looking at a specific area, a specific region? Can you look at this all the way from the cell? I agree with you. 70% is on the radio side near passive active elements. Can you look at this also or track some of this back into data center? There's a big discussion in the inventory space as well of tracking power and some of this. But I would say I see this becoming more of the more you learn from the behavior, this is something that can be applied across a variety of different technologies. But then, over time will evolve.
Sinan, what have you been pleasantly surprised by in terms of GenAI capabilities, where you're like, wow, this, I did not think that it will give us this much gain or this much new intelligence that I didn't have before, or it's able to complete X percentage of open problems before, and what have you been disappointed by?
Well, thank God, no disappointments yet. But we also have very limited Gen AI implementation. And if I can give you a real life example, and just building up on the energy discussion, actually, a couple of weeks ago, a customer of ours, an EV company, had a software upgrade. I'm sure many of you had that software upgrade. It comes with a whole month of free usage and autonomous driving experience. I took the challenge, and my wife totally rejected the idea, but I took the challenge. And while I was really enjoying the experience, in the office, my team realized that the traffic went up by 2%, right around the same time. And we were like, okay, so I guess there's some upload, download, they are using us as guinea pigs, but it's exciting. But traffic is high. Why is it higher, right? So now I'm going to tie this to energy consumption. So higher traffic, more radio usage, more energy consumption, right? So how we deal with it right now with the current Gen AI or AI we have is to look at the trend, go back 3 weeks, 4 weeks, same day, same hour. What happened there? Oh, there's a traffic load. We don't need the third radio. Let's shut it down. It's kind of classical, traditional way. and all of a sudden you wake up one morning and you have more traffic. Now, the traditional methods that we have would wait maybe 3 more weeks to capture that. I need something to capture it tomorrow.
Correct.
And I think GenAI has that power. And that's what we're trying to do with GenAI right now. Our trials just started. We're just kicking it off. When we see a problem or a potential challenge, it doesn't have to be something that requires a trouble ticket per se. It can be a behavioral change. It can be another challenge, a stress on the network. I think GenAI will give us real good insight so we can do better energy management and better quality at the end. That's the goal, right? Energy, quality, better throughput, so our revenue goes up with it.
Yeah. So, one of the areas that holds great promise is root cause analysis. Something goes wrong, you figure out, as you mentioned. And the nirvana for engineers is the closed loop. It's not after the fact, but while it's happening, you get informed. It maybe self-adjusts itself and gives you a notice that, yeah, I'm doing this to the network. We are far away from that. What is preventing us? Like, how fast can we go, really, given the operational constraints within an organization, to get to that point where it's truly an autonomous network?
So, Chetan, the way we see it and working very closely with the operator, I mean, there's a technical aspect to it and there's a human aspect, right? The technical aspect is that this is a data-driven problem. So if you see the life of a telco engineer or RF engineer, when he see an issue on a site, he looks after certain data point, whether it's coming from performance management, configuration management, alarm, inventory play a big role, topologies, log files, this and then he try to correlate. As the networks are getting complex, we used to have 2G, but 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, multiple services, video, streaming, is becoming a bigger data problem. And that's where we're clearly seeing the models which we had built and we have tested in our labs, and now we're testing with some of the operators, that it can do things much more accurate and much more faster, because the more data you throw to the computer and with the right model, it will outperform human, or at least you will give the right recommendation. So that, I think, is already we are seeing it, right? It's happening. The challenge is the human side, right? That how the human trusts that, can I press this button or I leave the button and it will, and that's where I think we are working with some of the challengers in the organizations of the operator side who really believe in this. They are the believer, and they know that in the beginning it's going to be some mistakes where the system will learn. That's the nature of the system, and there will be some accuracy issues. But what we are seeing constantly is the accuracy is getting better, and the belief is also getting better all across the board. And that's where we are very excited that this thing will happen, that very soon. That's the way you see an airplane pilot have a co-pilot or autopilot. All the RAN engineer, the telco engineer, the NOC engineer is going to have co-pilot, which give them efficiency, not only in the offices, but also in the field. Anton brought a very important point of the field. I mean, field is also a big spend for operators, a multi-billion-dollar spend. And in field, there are two channels. I mean, one, of course, they are expert people on the field. And then there are a lot of newcomers who come in the field, and it takes time for them to learn the network. With these type of co-pilots, which we are building with operators, you can bring a junior engineer, and with that co-pilot, he'll be ready to be a senior engineer. He knows exactly what he needs to do, which will also bring a lot of quality of service, quality of experience, and also the operational excellence.
And then one of the things that I think Fan had brought up was the field operations, how to optimize field operations and the role GenAI is playing. What are you seeing in kind of not operations within the boundaries of the corporate environment, but in the field in terms of how they operate supply chain, how they operate fleet, go to customer enterprise places to deal with issues and stuff like that? What are you seeing in there, how GenAI might be helping?
It's similar to what was already mentioned. So one big area where we see a lot of our client investing in is like this co-pilot concept, right? So how do you make your technicians more efficient? How do you kind of give them the right information at the right time so they can resolve problems faster and cheaper, right? So that's probably the biggest one, which kind of helps you. It helps you resolve a lot of problems remotely. You don't even need to send like a truck there. And then if you need to send a truck, then you basically can resolve that problem faster. So you kind of they can address more issues like within the same period of time. So that's kind of the biggest area where we see a lot of like effort being invested in today. Like, and operators approach it in different ways. Some of them they build their own kind of homegrown tools. Some of them just leverage external vendors. And like the results we've seen so far are pretty positive. Like we see, again, like the tool, like today, like one of our clients, basically they have a tool where a technician can go to a site and they can they can type in like what has been the performance of this site like yesterday, what is it today, like what are the main issues that were raised. So it's much easier, much faster for them to resolve this, other than like in the past they had to like open many different logs that they had to kind of do this process manually. Right now, like it's all automated. The other aspect of it is like also looking at it from the customer perspective, right? Like not from the like what happened at the tower, but what happened to a specific customer. Like why did the experience of that specific customer, why did it go down? Which then has a lot of kind of upstream also implications. Then you can manage the experience better. You can like also like from the commercial perspective, like provide the right treatments to the customer. Like if you know that this customer had outage in the last half an hour, like how do you proactively address it before they even reach out to us? So I think that's another area where we see kind of a lot of interest among the clients.
One of the risks kind of in the consumer segment is the hallucination. Now, the more focused you get, perhaps the less the hallucination is, but it's still there. How do you deal with, are you seeing that and how you're dealing with it? Srini?
Yeah, we do. Certainly, I think this is one of the biggest challenges that we have. First of all, when we get into the telco world, I think majority of the LLMs that are available today, and I think Raj did allude to actually training these LLMs with the right RAG process so that they are telco aware, quote unquote telco aware. I think that's something which is very important. And today telco industry is not something which is the most attractive industry among the tech giants. We have a very low total shareholder return, 6% as compared to a tech industry, which is like 28-29%. So not a lot of investment is actually going in from these tech players into the telco-specific LLMs or to even train the models with telco-specific data. So the onus is pretty much on the telco players to really make those investments. And obviously, we challenge for budgets as well. Mm-hmm. So I think hallucination plays a very important role, and that's where the RAG processes have to be extremely, RAG processes have to be efficient, and they are the ones who are really going to determine what is the level of hallucination, and it can only happen over a period of time. Also, in case of other industries, you have availability of a lot of synthetic data, but if you really look at the telcos, the availability of synthetic data and the investments that the players are making on making synthetic data available is very limited. That's something which will also have an impact on reducing this whole hallucination management. So I think there is certainly a big challenge that we have in the telcos today, and I think that needs to be addressed. And I don't see a clear answer as to how this will happen unless and until telcos actually put forth investments along with the entire community, the telco community, the vendor community. Everybody has to really put in investment to really train these models with telco-specific knowledge, and that's the only way you are able to really obviate these hallucinations.
So obviously, clearly, so there are a lot of telco alliances who are doing LLMs. There are partnerships with vendors, and then the hyperscalers are also working with the telcos. Every network is different. Perhaps even every deployment, every city is different. So when you're talking about synthetic data, are we going to get to a point where a select collection of synthetic data is applicable to various networks? Or you would expect that each operator will have its own set of synthetic data for their particular use?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge today is every deployment of every operator in the network scenario is totally different. Mm-hmm. I mean, the way, let's say, core is implemented by AT&T is totally different from, let's say, what T-Mobile does. I mean, these are large providers, bellwethers. They can afford to do that. Yeah. But if you, let's say, go to a smaller emerging market, a small operator in Vietnam, the way Mobifone deploys core vis-a-vis Viettel deploys core are completely different. So you can't really, as a vendor, this is the biggest challenge that we have, that there are operator-specific deployment. There are obviously country-specific deployment, but there are also operator-specific nuances that you need to take care of. So for us to say this data set, which is a synthetic data that we are able to generate, will represent at least to an 80% of accuracy for us, an operator community. That's something that we are really unable to get to, at least on the network side. On the IT side, it's a lot more harmonized, it's a lot more standard. But on the network side, to really assume that anything that we produce as a synthetic data is a representative sample of what a typical operator would do, that is a big challenge that we are actually confronted as vendors. And that's something which needs to be taken care of. Hopefully, with all the standardization coming to fore, the telco workloads moving into hyperscalers, operators looking at a horizontal CAS platform, and then applications coming on top. There is a lot of standardization that's being driven. That will, and that's also happening on the radio side as well, with ORAN coming into the picture. And I think that's going to drive a lot of standardization. That will probably give way to the synthetic data being a lot more applicable in mind.
Got it. So in the 5 minutes we have, maybe each of you could opine on, what would you like the ecosystem to focus on in the next 12 months or so that your consumption and the way you are doing GenAI improves by a factor of whatever, right? And so, like, what needs to happen more of in the industry so that you become much more productive?
First, I'd like to touch bases on the return of investment comment you made. Have you checked AT&T stock lately?
This is doing good.
They're more than 30% in 4 months. I'm not soliciting anything, just a fact. So return of investment in the telco world may be very different going forward. And that change started after we internally started talking about GenAI. No, I'm kidding. But there's a truth in that joke. What I'm expecting from my own team and my partners, like Raj is here, and we appreciate his support a lot. I mean, his team is giving us such a strong tool set. That's how we're running this network. And what we want to do in the next 12 months is to partner internally, partner externally. We're just kicking off a GenAI project. It's an LLM on a rack. We're going to train our LLMs on a rack specific for AT&T. And my expectation is to run fast, get these models trained, and get real results from it and show the efficiency so we can have another 30% increase in the stock. That's my expectation.
That's great.
Yeah, I would actually call two specific aspects. One is standardization. As I was alluding to earlier, every deployment for every operator is different, and every operator wants their specific aspects to be considered. From a vendor community, the more standardization is more...
Is that becoming part of the 6G process?
Yeah, I think that's something which will become part, not just of the 6G process, even in the 5G, I think there's a lot more standardization coming in. That's something which is very, very important. The second one, which is of paramount importance for us to make a difference, is agility within the operators. So how fast you can move, how fast you can make decisions, and how fast we can fail. That's the big difference between the other industries and, let's say, our telecom industry. We think a lot before we make investments, and trust you, the technology has moved on. So faster decision making, I think many operators are now realizing this. And we can clearly see a big change among the operator community to make these decisions much faster. They're a lot more amenable to failing faster. And I think that these are the two things I would really look at to be successful in this era.
Yeah, along the same lines, I think we keep talking about AI and GenAI, but I think this also sits on top of a data strategy. I think it's very difficult to implement an effective AI strategy without a data strategy. In the telco, there's been a lot of talk about this and many of these great initiatives. And I also leverage the insight from my past experience at Google Cloud in the last 4 years. They also take 3-4 years. So you cannot take 3-4 years to create an effective data strategy, because at the end of it, you're now solving a problem that you don't have anymore when you started 3 years ago. And the second I agree is the operator agility and decision making. The demand is there. There's no question on demand. There's no question on interest. The question is how empowered is the organization to make decisions. Sometimes it's difficult to even understand who owns something, who clicks the button to implement something, because it's a cross-organizational thing. But I see maybe all this push is going to accelerate all of this more and more.
I think from my standpoint, totally agree that data is one thing, because who owns the data and how we as a startup, because data for us is AI ML is the fuel to build anything, to test anything, that eventually deploy anything. And that's in our initial engagement. We see when we talk with CSPs, there's a whole discussion that who owns the data, whether operations owns the data, whether CDO owns the data, and that's slow down thing for a startup. But also what we're seeing, that operators also getting mature, and now they're really seeing that, yes, maybe this party owns the data, but for this particular problem, this party can work with you, and it's happening. So, and not just in North America, we're seeing the same pattern in Asia Pacific and in Europe as well. So that I'm expecting that will grow more and more. And similarly, as the open RAN and overall the networks will get open, I would like to see that how the big players, startups like us, we start playing together. We can run a little bit faster than the bigger players, and bigger players, if they're open, we can create an environment where we can do more innovation together, right? Versus just sitting in a one box situation. So I think that's where, and it's also already happening. We're working very closely with Ericsson. We're working very closely with Nokia, AWS, Blue Planet. So, that innovation will come together when the startups and the, big players work together in a very open environment. So that's my expectation.
Antal, what are you advising your clients for what to do in the next 12 months?
I think what we need right now is like some clear success stories. Right? So I think like there's a lot of experimenting, lots of piloting, lots of like people thinking about it. Like, but we kind of need to move to a stage where people actually start to get convinced outside of kind of the lab, like that this is working, and kind of I think like engineering teams are more or less there. But I think like the next step is to convince the CFOs that it's actually worth investing in, and like hiring more people, like investing more money in the technology. I think that's the next step. But to do that, we need to show that like there's clear ROI for that. So like proving this and building these first like early success stories, I think it is important. So that's
Okay.
our.
Well, we have 2 months to get those successful stories out for 2025. Well, thank you very much.